All right, welcome to this new episode of Cast It to the King. We are live once again, and it is introducing the first segment of Memphis snowing edition of this podcast, where we are in the garage still, and it is snowed outside. We are snowed in, and thus we are taking this show live today. And believe it or not, the last episode that we did here was actually was much colder in here. Believe it or not, because I had like a blanket, like two blankets wrapped around my waistline, essentially, because my tushy was getting a little cold in here the last time. I'm your host, Joshua Mickle, and we are going to get into some awesome, entertaining topics on the show, and we are going to get started off with this right here. We have up in the pipelines of a potential revival of Halo in our midst in the world of entertainment. Why do I say that? I say that because the first two seasons of Halo that was produced by Paramount. First season I enjoyed. Second season was better. It's got a 90% approval rate on Rotten Tomatoes. But Paramount went ahead and just gutted the entire... I want to make sure our volume is up to snuff right now. That should be good right there. Yeah, right there. So Paramount has ditched the Halo series altogether, leaving it open for a potential another suitor to pick it up and run with the third season. Now, over the last few days, though, Halo has found a new home, and that's with Netflix. The first two seasons will be airing and be available on Netflix. If it's not available now, it will be available soon in the future. Now, in terms of what does this mean for the future of the Halo TV series? For those of you that don't know, the Halo series is not a faithful adaptation to the game. It is essentially what like Marvel movies are. Like they'll take source material and then they'll interweave it in their own creative ways for their own creative stories. Like there's not a comic called Deadpool and Wolverine that tells you what happens at the beginning, middle, and end. And then same thing with, even with movies like, say, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Days of Future Past for X-Men, Avengers: Infinity War. Like there are comics of those runs, but they don't stay to the T in terms of like tit for tat, point for point of what happens in those stories. But this has brought up a interesting proposal as to should Netflix pick up a season 3 where Paramount would not for Halo. And Netflix is not new to this. They have done this before. One of the most famous examples was a show called Lucifer. Aired on CW, got dropped, and then for at least the next 3 seasons, it got picked up by Netflix, and that turned out to be critically successful. There are other shows that they've done it with before. I think there's one called Time Traveler where it got picked up for a 3rd season and then nothing else after that. Netflix is notorious, though, for making subpar to mediocre movies. But when it comes to their TV shows, when it comes to them adapting, like them creating actual TV shows, they are money. They are on the ball. They know what they're doing when they're making TV shows. And I think one example I can use, and I remember watching it for the first time. And I'm not a horror fan. I'm not a big horror fan, but I like the It movies, the 2 recent ones. But on Netflix, there was this series called Haunting. The second season was called Haunting of Hill House. Whatever the first one was called, I can't remember off the top of my head. But that first season, and then subsequently in the second season, bent your mind like crazy as to what the heck was going on in that show. And especially for the first season with episode 5 with the revelation. I don't know if it was episode 5, 4, 6. It was like midway through the season where, and the bent neck lady reveal was one of the most like jaw-dropping moments when they make the reveal of who she was throughout the entire show. And I just wish Netflix would do the same thing with their movies. They need to treat their movies the same way they do their TV shows. They need to give their films theatrical releases properly. It looks like we're about to get that with Chronicles of Narnia, with the reboot coming from the director of Barbie, who's been helming up this project with Netflix and has demanded a theatrical release and has gotten a theatrical release window from Netflix to release the first of many Netflix hopes of Chronicles of Narnia with a reboot that's about to be underway. Should Netflix do a season 3 of Halo? I would love to see what they could do up their arsenal as to creatively where to go with the story with Halo, with how the season ended per se, because the potential is there, because like I said before, like they have like Marvel and DC, they have Halo has a vast array of mythos, the games obviously, and now books apparently that they can draw upon in terms of making great content. If they could somehow, I mean, again, this is me being selfish right here. If they could somehow interweave in a way the last season of Halo that Paramount ended with, and we somehow interweave that into the storyline of Halo 2, and then we get Halo 3, and then so on and so forth, that would be really amazing. That would be really amazing. Although I am still freaking torn and hurt over the ending of Halo 5, of where you set up this big conflict, you set up this cliffhanger of an ending, and you explain it away in books. And then when the next game comes out and people are wondering, what the heck happened? You have that ending. What the heck happened? Oh, it's just like 10, 15 years later, however long it was. Oh, it's just so many years later. Catch up on the books. Oh yeah, everyone that we knew from the last show, from the last pointing of the series. Oh yeah, they're dead. Yeah, some of them are dead. Some of them are off doing other things. Oh, no worries. Oh my goodness gracious, man, that game, like that ending had such great potential of what you could have done with the next 2 games right there. But they decided with Halo Infinite, the way they went about that, trying to tie the bow on the whole Cortana story, I think they dropped the ball on that one big time, and thus we are potentially seeing a reboot of the Halo games with them using the Unreal Engine 5 of next generation gaming for their upcoming new Halo game that's supposed to come out no later than 2028, I am assuming. But yeah, I would love to see what Netflix could potentially do for season 3. Like, I would definitely be tuned in for that, because I know Netflix has a great track record when it comes to making TV shows. All right, speaking of Halo, and we're going to dive into this because this one intrigues me a lot, and it's going to divide the fan base, and it's also going to invigorate some new fans and old fans alike with this next one. The Master Chief is such an iconic character in the lore of gaming, especially Xbox. It is the flagship title of Xbox. The first thing you think of when you think of Xbox is Master Chief. You think Halo altogether. There was rumblings, if you remember on the show, there was a rumor that was swirling around that other Xbox-related IP could be on the way for Microsoft to make available to other platforms like the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 5. Now, according to insider NateTheHate, and we will bring it up with the quote right here. According to NateTheHate, we are indeed going to be getting the Master Chief Collection available on the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025. And it goes on, and I'll read a little bit of this article from IGN that first broke this, is that while Microsoft's multi-platform game strategy is well documented at this stage, Halo was seen as the final frontier. However, perhaps the famous first-person shooters fight from Xbox shouldn't come as a surprise. Last year, Microsoft's gaming chief Phil Spencer said that there's no red lines in their first-party lineup when it comes to going multi-platform, and that included Halo. And speaking with Bloomberg, Spencer also said that every Xbox game is up for grabs when it comes to making the multi-platform jump. And also quoted right here, I do not see sort of red lines in our portfolio that say thou must not, he said. And then it also goes on to say that also so it essentially goes on with the quotes in the article down below. So with this potential, so from what I gather from this particular fellow, NateTheHate, from what I gather online is that he is the equivalent to Daniel RPK of movie scoops and movie insider news. So in terms of that alone, thus the title of this particular video, the headliner, the Master Chief Collection, is the subject of topic right here. And thus the Halo game that's getting talked about the most of possibly making the jump to the PlayStation 5 from the Xbox is this Master Chief Collection. What is the Master Chief Collection of Halo? It involves 6 games. It involves Halo Reach, a vastly underrated game in the Halo arsenal. Then you have the first ever Halo game. You have Halo 2. You have Halo 3. You have the Halo 3 spin-off game. And then you have Halo 4. This does not include Halo 5, any of the Halo Wars games. This does not include Halo, the last Halo game, Halo Infinite. Now, for this particular thing, though, as I try to bring myself back up into the picture here, what does this mean for the long run for Halo? I think this is going to invigorate the fan base. This is going to ignite new fans to be drawn into this, I would say, this illustrious franchise of a shooter game. Because making the jump from PlayStation, let's just get this out of the way. And this was brought up in a stat last year. 2 out of every 3 systems that are sold between Xbox and PlayStation, the PlayStation sells 2 out of every 3. That is a logistic fact. The PlayStation is outselling the Xbox console. So the PlayStation has already won the war in terms of gaming per se. In terms of what this means for the future of Halo, this is going to reinvigorate the franchise in such a way that hasn't seen such popularity since Halo 3, since Halo 2, if someone want to go back that far. But my interest in the franchise invigorated with Halo 3. I first got my Xbox 360, played Halo 3. Great game. Caught up on the last 2 games, and love playing that game with my friends. Love the mythos, love the storyline. And then there's rumblings of Neil Blomkamp and Peter Jackson doing a movie. It was famous. They were famous for that at Comic-Con, I think in 2007 or 8. Ultimately got canned from Universal and 20th Century Fox. And thus Neil Blomkamp and Peter Jackson went on to do District 9 famously. So because of the failure to launch a Halo movie at the time, they went on to do District 9, which is one of the best sci-fi movies out there in Hollywood today. Now, for Halo, Master Chief Collection, for this to be available on PlayStation, a lot of my friends are going to come out of the shadows that have been bashing Xbox, that have been bashing Halo, a lot of them are now going to come out, I predict, and say, oh, yes, let's play this game. It's on PlayStation. Yes, Master Chief and the Halo games are such great games. The bias is there. They can't deny it. The bias is there for them against Xbox. But in terms of the long-term process for Xbox, what does this mean? For those that want to hold, as the article said, like the final frontier in terms of this is the one game that cannot cross-platform. This is the one game that cannot go over to PlayStation or let alone Nintendo. Switch 2 for icing on the cake for you. This is the one property that cannot go over to PlayStation. If it does go over to PlayStation, why did I buy an Xbox in the first place? One, I'll go back to that stat for you. 2 out of every 3 consoles between the PlayStation and Xbox that were sold were PlayStations, not Xbox. The PlayStation's outselling the Xbox. Microsoft is obviously the owner of Xbox. Microsoft is in the money-making business. If you look at their Office applications like Word, Excel, etc., it's Microsoft-based, but they have it available for you to download on a Mac, on a Google, on a different type of computer that's not a Windows. I think this is the route that Microsoft is ultimately going to be going with their video games, is that not only will they try to pump out consoles, not as much as PlayStation, obviously, because you're going to lose money if you keep doing that. If you try to keep up, you just got to keep on doing the updates with your system. And then, like, say, another decade or so, release an entire console if you want to. But for Xbox's strategy, they're essentially, what I'm gathering from this, they are copying the strategy of what Microsoft has done with their Office applications. Have it available on your main platform devices, but also have it available for a fee, download, like price, etc., on other computers, essentially. The same thing's going to be happening for their games. And we're seeing that with Forza, supposedly. Gears of War has been heavily rumored. A lot of other games have already made the jump. Indiana Jones, the new Xbox exclusive video game, has been confirmed that it's going to make the jump to PlayStation 5. So Halo, the Master Chief Collection, with this one game that includes 6 titles, in this one game, is set to make the jump to PlayStation. And then, just to go a little bit on the deeper note here, if that if this ultimately happens, and I think it will, this opens the door not just for, if Halo is on the table, everything for Xbox is on the table. Every single thing is on the table. From Stargate, I would love to see the Fable games make their way onto the PlayStation platform. The role-playing games in a mythical world with magical creatures, but you can essentially choose good or evil. Your choices mean everything. I love role-playing games. That's one of the few ones that I grew up playing. So think what's the equivalent to Fable today? The new Hogwarts games comes to mind for some comparisons. That just came out from Warner Games. That's the equivalent to the Fable games, and Fable came before Hogwarts, funny enough. So guess who drew influence from what in terms of gaming and decision making? I would love to see them make that jump. There are some other games I would like for them to make the jump to PlayStation. But until then, the big news coming from NateTheHate, a reliable insider in gaming, in the gaming world, is that Halo and Master Chief will indeed make their way to the PlayStation 5 this year in 2025. All right. With that down, we're going to talk about this next topic of discussion, and that is this. The Daredevil Born Again is upon us. It is upon us. It is coming out pretty soon. I think March the 3rd or the 4th it comes out. And for those Titan fans that are watching, this season lasts all the way up to the NFL draft. So if you want to watch something that will bleed the time for you, that will help pass the time for you, from now into the NFL draft. The last episode airs on the week of the NFL draft. So this is going to be a great piece of item for you if you're an NFL fan that's just looking for something to pass the time between now and the NFL draft with this new Daredevil show. Now, this new Daredevil show, long history. This has been shot. It was originally supposed to be 18 episodes. How long were those episodes is the topic of discussion. Could have been 20, 30, less than 30 minutes like The Acolyte was, which would have been horrible. But this show has been shot, 18 episodes. The producers, the executive producers, the structure of the show, the writing has been bamboozled. They have been scrapped. They have redone the show twice over. They brought over the showrunner, producer of the first Punisher show over to be the showrunner for Daredevil Born Again. Bringing him in should have lit off the neon lights of saying, this is going to be a rated R, heavily violent show. That should have been the headlines and the neon lights screaming on everyone online. But no. Folks still at the time still said, Disney doesn't do rated R stuff. They wouldn't do TVMA. It's too violent. They would never. This Marvel Cinematic Universe started in 2008. We are in 2025. You think, crazy thought here. Yeah, I would think that from 2008 to 2025 that the audience has grown mature enough to watch Deadpool and Wolverine, to watch Echo, which show last year, which was rated R, but horrible show for Marvel and Disney, would be old enough to watch now Daredevil Born Again. Now, according to Forbes, I can't remember if it was Forbes or the Hollywood Reporter that said that the producers of the show have claimed that this is going to be more violent than the Netflix shows of the 3 seasons of Daredevil. That this is going to be more violent than those 3 shows. If that's the case, holy macro, how do you pull that off? If you're, I'm sure they'll find a way to pull it off. I'm sure they'll find a way. So the whole speculation of, they can't do it rated R. The Netflix series is not in canon. It's not the same continuity. This Daredevil Born Again show is rebooted. This isn't technically season 4. All of that turned out to be false. This is in the same continuity of the Netflix 1, 2, and 3 seasons. This is going to be a rated R show. This is going to stay with the source material in terms of being heavily violent. This is not going to deviate from this formula that has worked with Netflix that is now being carried over to Disney Plus and Marvel Television, Marvel Studios. The latest trailer, though, that came out online, the TV spot, you can look it up on YouTube. It's a TV spot called Demons. 30-second TV spot for this upcoming show. The music, the grit. You see a glimpse of Punisher. You see the glimpse of the gruesome violence that's in this movie. That's in the show. You see the confrontations with Daredevil. You see Kingpin back. You see everything that, like even the small snippet of Bullseye that we were left with that cliffhanger. Like, what the heck happens with this character after season 3? You see the glimpses of him. So they are not ignoring the continuity of Netflix. Now, for a quick little history lesson here. This is not technically season 4 of Daredevil for Netflix. Why is that the case? Apparently, according to one of the guilds, the Writers Guild or the Actors Guild that revealed this last year or so, when they were redoing, when the concept of the show started and then when they reshuffled this to make it continuity, is that if this was technically season 4, the existing contracts at Netflix with the actors per se, even though if it was going to be picked up by Disney Plus, or say for argument's sake, if Paramount or CBS, NBC, Peacock, Max, whoever streaming it is, whatever television network wanted to pick up a season 4, they would have to be obligated to pick up the contracts that would involve increased pay, I think, by double from the actors and associate producers and crew members from the first 3 seasons of Daredevil. And so what this rebranding called Daredevil Born Again does for Disney, not only do you not have to pay these actors and tech crew and everyone behind the scenes double the money, you essentially pay them the same money that you pay them for the first 3 seasons of Netflix Daredevil for Netflix Marvel. Now, is that a shrewd business thing to do? Is that a bad move against the actors that have given you great performances that deserve the raises? Yeah, it is. It's such a dubious move that, like, even as someone that's going through financial rehab myself, if I was in that situation where I'm Kevin Feige, I'm the head guy. I can't remember his name right now. That's head of Marvel Television right now under Kevin Feige. Even if that were the case, if you're trying to save a penny, these actors deserve the raises because they've turned in great performances. Thus, the fan outcry of when the season was canceled and the critical responses from the first 3 seasons, one of the many things that outside of Marvel Studios' control that they are pulling into their own continuity as continuity because it was that good of a show. It blew their standards away. It blew their expectations away of how great the first 3 seasons of Netflix Daredevil was, and thus the spinoffs like The Punisher, the first season of Jessica Jones. Luke Cage is an underrated show. Iron Fist, a little left to be desired there for the first season. Second season was an improvement, but that's the one show that people want to bury underneath the rug and forget about in terms of Iron Fist. But for Daredevil, Born Again, coming out, it's going to lead up to the NFL draft. This is set to be a more violent show. This is going to be, I think, and they actually announced that they are in pre-production for starting up season 2 quickly of Daredevil Born Again to do a sequel to the show. And so that leaves me to believe that with all the shuffling they have done, with all the basically scrap everything, let's reshoot this entire show, that they are happily satisfied with the route they went, that they are happily satisfied with where the show's going. The new villain of the show, can't remember his name off the top of my head. Relatively new character in the comics, but a very scary and deadly villain per se. That even in the marketing of this new season, even Kingpin is apparently trying to make crossroads with Daredevil to say, hey, we may not like each other, but we have a situation with this particular enemy that not only threatens you, threatens me. And in this series, they teased it before with other previous Marvel shows. Kingpin is now the mayor of New York City, so that's going to be an interesting dynamic of what goes on with that storytelling. All right, with that down, we got a few more bits to talk about here, and we got our first look a few weeks ago of the new Fantastic Four trailer. And boy, does this look refreshing. This looks really refreshing compared to the previous 2 iterations of the Fantastic Four, from the Josh Trank ones that came out 10 years ago and then 20 years ago. Wow, 20 years ago. The Tim Story ones with the original Fantastic Four when that broke onto the scene. Now Marvel Studios finally has their hands on their A-tier, top-tier IP. And Fantastic Four is yet the latest iteration of what Marvel can do with their top tier IP. This trailer looks no pun intended. This trailer looks fantastic. We get glimpses of Herbie. We get glimpses of the cross pollination of practical / CGI The Thing, which is something that's a really interesting take they're going to be doing with The Thing going forward in this movie. If there's one criticism, it's not really a criticism. It's just an outsider's take. Is that Pedro Pascal, who plays Reed Richards in this movie, he comes across as playing the same exact character in every single movie, besides Wonder Woman, where he was so outlandishly out there with his acting for Wonder Woman 1984 when he played that character in that movie. God, that movie was so bad. That movie was so bad. Wonder Woman 1984. Oy. But yeah, besides that movie, Pedro Pascal comes across as an actor like from Mandalorian, from The Last of Us, from Game of Thrones. He plays the exact same character. And that's not a knock against Marvel for casting him, or it's not a knock against Pedro Pascal if that's the way he wants to act. It's like Kevin Conroy. What is the difference between him and Kevin Conroy? They both play the exact same characters in every single piece of content that they're in, from Yellowstone, from Draft Day, from a bevy of other movies that Kevin Conroy is in. And I don't care what anyone says, including my dad. Kevin Conroy is overrated lately. And yeah, the last he had like a 2-parter movie that was supposed to break into theaters, got canceled, and like 2 parts that were supposed to come out last year and didn't. So that's how badly received it was, because people are overplayed with Kevin Conroy isms. So in terms of Pedro, though, I have no doubt he's going to deliver a great performance of Reed Richards. We are due for a good Fantastic Four movie by now. We are due for a Fantastic Four movie by now. A good one. We are due for a good one. Now, other tidbits we weren't shown in the trailer, actually. We were not shown potentially Mole Man. Or were we? With John Krasinski's character in the trailer that just popped up randomly in the cave. You also have a first accurate glimpse of Galactus in the trailer, which I knew made a lot of people happy. Made a lot of people happy to see, hey, that's actually Galactus. The 60s settings was actually really good for where this movie's taking place. There's many speculations about why is it the 60s, what part of the 60s. It's been confirmed. This is a different universe, Fantastic Four. This is not the main Marvel Cinematic Universe like 616, like Captain America Brave New World, same universe, Fantastic Four. This is a universe set in a retro, futuristic 60s. And we will find out one way or another, how does this lead into Avengers Doomsday? When, maybe in a post-credit scene, that Doctor Doom gets introduced from this universe and makes the jump into the multiverse, and thus we have Avengers Doomsday happening on our plate. Really exciting times coming up ahead. And just one more thing to close out this particular topic is that we have, Marvel started out not having all their IP. They had it licensed out because in the late 90s they had to sell off their rights to characters because of them filing for bankruptcy. And right now they're probably kicking themselves as to the one remaining thing that remains out of their reach is technically Spider-Man, still lingering over at Sony. And Javier Rod still holding his clutches on that property. But they started out with C-tier, B-level, C-level, B-level characters like Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Thor, to start out their universe. But they took those characters that they had in-house, that they got back in-house. They made great quality movies. And then they made the Avengers. And then they made the Winter Soldier. We got Civil War. We got Iron Man 3. We had the next Avengers movie. And then we had the first cross-pollination of a Sony deal with Marvel, and we saw what happened when Marvel got their hands on Spider-Man. And look at the 3 quality movies that we got from Marvel Studios with Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. That's a far cry from some of Sony's outlets with Craven, Morbius, Venom, Madam Web. Need I go on about their live action movies that they've made since making the deal with Marvel? Marvel knows what they're doing with their beloved IP, with their most famous, their most popular characters. X-Men 97. They finally get their hands back on the X-Men property and the Fantastic Four property. They first show you what they can do with X-Men with the revitalization of the 90s show called the X-Men animated series, now redubbed X-Men 97. And that first season of X-Men 97, I never watched the animated series. I was always into the Spider-Man animated series. Hardly watched, if at all, watched the X-Men animated series. The X-Men 97 was chef's kiss golden, amazingly great, and can't wait to see what happens at the end. I mean, what happens going forward with season 2 with that. And then we got Deadpool and Wolverine. We see what Marvel can do live action wise with X-Men and some of their other properties they gotten back that made cameos in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And now we are finally getting the full circle of Fantastic Four, of Marvel showing the audience, showing the world what they can do with their properties done properly in-house, because we are due for a good Fantastic Four movie, and I have no doubt Marvel's going to deliver the goods for us. All right, speaking of Spider-Man and Marvel, not technically Marvel Studios related, but we will be talking about this right here. That cliffhanger that happened at Across the Spider-Verse in 2023, we are in the year 2025. The sequel to this movie was supposed to come out in 2024 last year in late March, early April. We are in February of 2025. This film has been delayed and delayed and delayed. The voice actors for this movie, normally when an animated movie is going into production, normally you get animators already working on it. Sometimes you get the voice recordings done first, and then you have the animation working around the facial expressions of said recordings. The actors have come out and said that they have not recorded anything. The animators have come out and said they have not written anything. They have not drawn up anything. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are the head honchos of these movies, Into and Across the Spider-Verse. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the producers of these movies and the writers, they claimed that they had these things shot back to back. And now they're saying they have scrapped the story for number 3 to give us something else. Now, we have a potential code red situation happening over into the Spider-Verse animated movie side of things. You do not, oh my goodness. You do not leave your fans hanging like that on such a cliffhanger like that. You do not do that. And the meme that came out, and I don't have it with me to share because I think I'd probably get hit with a copyright notice if I shared it. It's a meme, if you remember, Toy Story 2. Go back with me for a second. Toy Story 2. Woody's watching like the Woody's Roundup show with Jesse and the gang, and he's like watching the show. He's enthralled. He loves it. And then you hear the announcer say, "To the next suite for Woody's finest hour." All right. Next thing. They turn off the TV, and then Woody says, "Come on, let's see the next episode." And then Kelsey Grammer's character, Prospector, says from his box, "That's it. The show was canceled after that." We are potentially headed into a real life meme of that potential Woody's Finest Hour being canceled. Now, this movie being delayed as far back as 2028. The first movie came out in 2018. And I had this joke. I had this bad epiphany in the back of my mind when it was revealed that, oh yeah, there's no way with nothing done already after the release of Cross the Spider-Verse that this film, Beyond the Spider-Verse, the sequel, is ever going to get done on time for a March 2024 release date. And so I said in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this film really going to be delayed on the 10-year? Is the sequel going to be released on the 10-year anniversary of Into the Spider-Verse? There's no way. There's absolutely... And it turns out that that might actually be the case. Why? How in the world do you... I don't know if this is studio shakeups because of what happened with Morbius, Madam Web, Craven, a lackluster Venom 3 with a franchise. One would think that shouldn't have any effect on it because those are the live action slates. Those have nothing to do with Spider-Verse. Except for one thing. Avi Arad is still technically the lead producer of these Spider-Verse movies, even though it is Phil Lord and Chris Miller that have led the way for these two critically acclaimed Spider-Verse movies, Spider-Man movies, that some, and I can't rebut them because they have a point of them saying that Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse are two of the better Spider-Man movies than the three that we have gotten from Marvel Studios with Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. I can't argue that. I can see that, especially with Across the Spider-Verse, which was better than the first one. That was better than the first one. With all the cameos and great storyline that you had there. You take a character like Spot, laughable in the comics, laughable in the TV show, if you remember the 90s pretty well. And they made him a compelling character. That is the work of great writing right there. Great directing. And you leave us with that cliffhanger on Earth 42? And nothing's going to be resolved from that? Nothing? Oh my God. Oh my God. What's the equivalent to this? What's the equivalent to this? What's a sequel? Oh, yeah. Aragon. Anybody remember that movie? A highly underrated movie. I don't know why people hate it, but people don't seem to like it, apparently. Good mythical movie. Dragon Rider and whatnot. Literally before the credits roll, you see the king. He has the mark from his dragon. You see the reveal that he's about to unleash his dragon against Aragon's. And then the screen goes black, roll credits. Oh, wait, yay, I can't wait for Aragon 2. No, it's not happening. It's canceled. What's the Michael Bay produced one? I Am Number 4. I Am Number 4. One of many books out there. Only got one movie. I quite enjoyed that. I actually quite enjoyed I Am Number 4. That'd be low on my list in terms of like guilty pleasures. Like if that appeared on my if I'm going through live channels right now and then that popped up, I'll stop and watch it. Like I quite enjoy that movie. What is another one, for example? Oh my Lord. Percy Jackson. Great first movie, bad second movie. We didn't get a third movie. Thus it got rebooted when Disney got it, and now it's a thriving television series on Disney Plus. That's another example. What are other Halo? Even though I'm not that invested in the TV series, most people feel the same way about that with Halo. You just cut it off after 2 seasons, really? You just cut it off after that? Here's a show for you, if you remember. Flash Forward. The last remnants of, I think it was season 2 that they cut it off after. They cut it off after season 2, where this phenomenal, like this unexplainable event happens, and everyone just drops dead, essentially comatose. But everyone sees what's going to happen in the future, hence flash forward, and then the whole like trying to figure out like, does this affect my future? I saw you in my future. How does that affect my marriage right now? What's going on? And then you end the series, like the season 2 ends where you see another flash forward instance where it happens again. And then you see what was this character's, I believe his daughter, now grown up. And then she says they found him. I'm going to assume that's implying that they found her father. And then the last shot is apparently like him like trying to disable a bomb, but the last shot brings it to back to current time. Building explodes. End season there. Roll credits. Get ready for season. Oh wait, no, we didn't get season 3. Crap! That's another one we're left on a cliffhanger, and just tortured with of what we could have done. This is going to be infamous now in terms of if we do not get a sequel to this movie. This is going to be one more. The Incredibles. Not a lot of people, I mean, I wouldn't say too many people were upset that we didn't get a sequel. It was made as a one-off, but people were clamoring for a sequel. We finally got it like 12 years later after the fact. I think the film came out in 2005, I want to say, and then it came out in 2018 or 19 it came out. Like well over like about 13, 14 years later, we finally get a sequel to that movie. But yeah, Spider-Verse, you got to get your crap together. You got to get your bags together, figure out who's animating your movie, who's writing, like get your story down. And I mean, here's a little nugget for you. Before we close this segment out. Sony's deal with Marvel. And this is all speculation right here. This is just all I'll tell you when the speculation starts. Sony and Sony's licensing deal with Marvel is that they have to produce a Spider-Man. They have to be in production, cameras rolling, and release a film per every few years, or else the rights lapse back to Marvel Studios for free. We've gotten this past year of 3 live-action Sony Marvel movies with Madam Web, Venom, and Kraven. There is speculation. Here's where speculation begins right here. There's speculation that the spin-offs of those live-action movies do not count for resetting that clock. For Sony. And so, they are supposedly supposed to go into production with the 4th Spider-Man movie in the MCU. If that film is delayed for whatever reason, it doesn't look like it's going to be. It looks like they're going to be doing this simultaneously with after Doomsday, and then when Tom Holland gets done with the Odyssey with Christopher Nolan, that they're going to start rolling for Spider-Man 4. But if for some reason it gets pushed back, if for some reason they can't start rolling cameras, that's going to bring up some red lights for Sony executives in terms of trying to get something rolling immediately under the Spider-Man name for a movie to be released, or else the rights lapse back to Marvel. We are in 2025 right now. The last Spider-Man movie in name that came out was Across the Spider-Verse in 2023. we see the timeline between how long they can go with not making a Spider-Man movie, with Spider-Man 3 and then the rebooted Amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007. Once that movie hits theaters, hits the screens, the clock starts again. The clock resets itself. They were in pre-production with Spider-Man 4 with Sam Raimi for so long, going until 2010, and then some parts of 2011. Then it got announced that it's going to be rebooted, and then they went to production with that, and then came out in 2012 with that first movie. Now, with looking at that timeline, you're looking at 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's about 5 years between release dates. Like a 5-year window. We are in 2025 right now. If Sony can't get something rolling in the movies in 3 years, then Sony is going to, unfortunately for their business, lose the rights to Spider-Man for nothing. Marvel, all they have to do is keep at it with the deal that they have with Sony. But if for some reason they're dragging their legs, Marvel's not complaining at all. They'll just get the rights back for free. They'll just make the movies themselves with no collaboration with Sony whatsoever. And so, with that, little tidbit, we are going to take a quick break here, and we will be back shortly to talk about Titans. Stay tuned. All right, we are back. We are back with the show right now. Let's cue this up right here. All right, with that little break right there, we're going to dive into the last tidbit here, and we're going to call it a day. And that is this. The stage is set. Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Which of the two should the Titans select first overall, or trade back and still select one or the other? There has been rumblings yet again online as to why the Titans shouldn't draft one of these quarterbacks. This is supposedly a weak quarterback draft. When you say that and compare that to last year where you had an unprecedented historical 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, 6 in the top 12, which never happens in NFL history, then yes, by those standards, it is a weak quarterback class. Okay? Normally that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in reality every single year. That never happens. That's a once in a generation type of thing. So, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Where do I stand on this? And I'm going to get some backup right here shortly, and I'll show you how and why. With Cam Ward, the guy that came out of nowhere last year, put Miami back on the map. Miami was nowhere near sniffing the top 25 until he showed up. And then look what happened with Miami. He slung it. He passed it. He ran it. He improvised. And he was in the running. He was one of the finalists for the Heisman. Great for him. Look at Shedeur. Came to Colorado. Was dubbed one of the worst schools. You know what? I don't do this justice. I'm going to... Where's my mouse? There you are right there. All right. I don't do this justice. So I'm going to let this video speak for itself right here. All right. And where's my mouse? There it is.
Where do you want to see Shedeur go?
What team? I would want to see Shedeur go to the Titans.
Number 1 overall.
Number 1 overall, no noise. Titans is a place you don't hear none of the noise. But I also believe that wherever Shedeur goes, he's good, because you got to understand, if I'm a GM and I'm drafting a quarterback, I got to say to myself, this kid's been through a lot more than every other kid in the draft. Mm-hmm. Because he always had to live up to being Deion Sanders' son. So he always had the spotlight on him, and all he did was produce.
Right.
When he went to Jackson State, they said he was at a black college. Then he went to the worst FBS school in college football, which was Colorado at the time.
Right.
They was the worst FBS school in football, Division I football. And 2 years later, they're ranked in the top 25. So that shows you that he won in high school, 4 state championships. He went to college. They said, oh, he's at a black school. He couldn't do that if he was here. Then he went to a school that wasn't that good and took them to greatness, took them to something to where as though now it's an attraction that you actually want to go to Colorado because they got Julian Newman now.
Right.
And that's a product of Coach Prime,
Yep.
his coaches, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and the way that Coach Prime treats his players.
Couldn't say it better myself. Couldn't say it better myself right there. Shedeur Sanders, the reason why we should be picking first overall to draft him to be the next Titans quarterback, in my opinion. He is ranked the most accurate quarterback in this class. Now, juxtapose that to the last 4 drafts of accuracy ball placement. He ranks number 2 behind Jaden Daniels of not just last year's draft, not 2 years ago's draft, not even 3 years ago's draft. The last 4 NFL drafts, Shedeur Sanders ranks 2nd behind Jaden Daniels in ball placement accuracy. And that is nothing to whine about. That is nothing to complain about. That is something Tennessee desperately needs right now. That is something they desperately need. Why? Let me think. Because we need accuracy from the quarterback position. Because we just went through a season where we have a quarterback with the intangibles, with the arm strength out there, and Will Levis. And where did that get us? Oh, yeah, where we're sitting right now, first overall. Turnovers, not good in between the ears. Not good with arm accuracy. And all he'll ever do is just chuck it deep, just chuck it deep. Just keep chucking it. Yeah. Look at my pump arm. Look at my pump fake. Watch me do that deep throw to Calvin Ridley, to DeAndre Hopkins. Oh yes, it just landed there somehow miraculously against the Texans. I can't remember the guy's name. That was Will Levis's last touchdown as a Titan, which will go down in infamy as to why we need to draft a quarterback first overall in this draft. And so, Cam Ward or Shedeur, they're both great prospects. The one thing with Shedeur that was pointed out the other day, he's got 50 fumbles, 5-0. Cam Ward does in college. He has got 50 fumbles in college. What is the lost fumble number? I do not know off the top of my head. But 50 fumbles he has put to the 50 footballs he's put on the ground. In terms of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, in terms of comparison, they only separate in the turnover margins by 1. Cam Ward's got 1 more interception than Shedeur Sanders in the last few years as a starter. Shedeur Sanders dealt with a horrific offensive line. If you placed either one of those offensive linemen in the draft, every single one of them is going to be undrafted. That's how bad his offensive line is. And for folks to say he threw the ball too much, like he threw the ball way too much, he didn't stay in the pocket too long, did not watch any of the Colorado games, because if he stays in that pocket, he is going to get annihilated, slaughtered, injured up to the wazoo. Horrible offensive line he was dealt with. a bad defense, despite having Travis Hunter playing part-time wide receiver and part-time defender. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders dealt with a bad hand compared to Cam Ward. Cam Ward had a better crew around him defensively and offensively when you're comparing the two between Miami and Colorado. And then also point this out to the haters out there. They're idiots at this point. For those that say, Cam Ward and Shedeur came from lesser competition colleges. They didn't play in the SEC. They didn't play in the Big Ten. Remind me what colleges Josh Allen played in. Remind me what conference he was in. Remind me what conference Patrick Mahomes was in. Remind me what conference Lamar Jackson was in. Oh, yeah, that's right. That'd be the Big 12 and the ACC. The two conferences that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders played in last year. I don't see y'all complain about them. I don't see y'all complain about them one bit. They're doing pretty well in the NFL, last I checked. They're doing pretty well. It don't matter what conference you come out of college. That's not how you evaluate the quarterback. That's not how you evaluate the quarterback position. You evaluate it based off of the tendencies that he's showing in the pocket and what he's able to do with the situations around him. And so, with that, we're gonna dive into this last part right here concerning this. And that is an alternate reality I do not want to be living in, but it's something we have to address. And I chose this quarterback, Rusty Smith, as a good example for this. Good old Rusty Smith, Jeff Fisher boy. 2010, I remember the year. Over 15 years ago. Man, am I old. For this thing, say we take Travis Hunter. Say we take Abdul Carter. Say we trade back in the late top half of the first top 10 in the first round. Take an offensive tackle or a wide receiver T-Mac. T-Mac's not a bad prospect. I get it. But the reality that some Titan fans want to live in, want to subjugate themselves to, is the mindset of mediocrity. And if they pass on both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders in this draft, this franchise is going to be dead. This franchise is going to be irrelevant. This franchise is going to be the new laughingstock, like doormat of the NFL. And many Titan fans want to roll with a veteran. Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones for some people. If I had this conversation with someone the other day. If I had a level, like if I had a ranking tier system like 1 to 10, 10 being we riot Nashville, burn buildings down to the ground in terms of like our frustration and disapproval of said quarterback being signed and flaunted out there as our number one guy. If Daniel Jones was ever signed here, that'd be a number 10 for me. I would drop everything and protest in the streets of Nashville of how bad of a signing this is, of how bad that is. You can make arguments for Matthew Stafford if he becomes available as a free agent. You don't trade for him. You sign him as a free agent. You don't trade for a 37-year-old quarterback, especially with the Rams asking for the Giants' number 3 overall pick, supposedly, according to Colin Cowherd. And with that, though, with how the state of the Titans, though, these fans want to dabble in a reality that involves they're complaining about coaching changes. They're complaining about inconsistency with the front office and head coaches being in the same alignment. You rooting or you not wanting to draft a quarterback in this draft, that door is wide open to happen, to absolutely happen, to have the now revolving door of GMs, presidents, and head coaches in your system. And lest you forget, we weren't supposed to get the first overall pick this year. We were given gifts from God himself in the form of Drew Lock and the Giants in Week 17, and in the form of Joe Milton and the Patriots in Week 18. We were given gifts from God, 2 gifts from God, 2 signs from God for us getting the first overall pick, for us to draft our franchise quarterback for once since Steve McNair, the name that will keep utterly repeated until we finally find our franchise quarterback in Steve McNair, that we last had in Steve McNair, who was last with us in 2005. This franchise, if they don't select Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, they pass on both. You thought the stands were empty in the last part of the Titans season? You thought there were blackouts for some of the Titans games this past year? Get ready for more of that. Get ready for season attendance records for lows if that happens. Because no one is going to be interested. Oh, the season tickets for the new stadium. Get ready for those sales to go down the tubes. None of the arguments for not drafting a quarterback makes any sense, because they are hedging their bets on a vet. They are hedging their bets on something they don't know in the future. Because first it was going into, like, throughout this year, for those that didn't want to draft Ward or Shedeur, or at the time Carson Beck, who was lauded as a top tier guy. Drew Alar was another guy before they both declared to go back to college for another season. Even in that crop of 4 quarterbacks, they were saying, no, wait for 2016 for Arch Manning and Nico from Tennessee. Let's wait for those guys. Now reality set into that. Now cold water is being thrown onto that fire of, we'll have to wait another year for those guys to come out. It'll probably be 2027 most likely for Nico and Arch to come out properly. That's not going to work out in 2016 unless they show drastic improvements. But there's no way they're coming out in 2026 unless they have a gangbusters type of season. They're hedging their bets on that. And so with that, I ask you this. For those that don't want to draft a quarterback, do you want to tank the NFL season of 2025 willingly? Do you want to set record lows in attendance? Do you want to be in this insane asylum of thinking? I'm asking you a legit question right now, and something that you need to come to reality with for some of you. Because if we go down this path of not taking a quarterback, this fan base will be dead as well. These are fair weather fans. They have better things to do in life than to go waste money on a ticket to watch a team suck willingly like that. It was one thing last year where we put up a fight in every single game and we had legit chances of winning the games. It's another thing when you willingly say, we are not going to try our hand at a franchise quarterback. Let's have the other teams go ahead and try their hand. The Raiders, the Jets, the Giants want to draft Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Why should they draft the quarterback but not us? What do they see in the quarterback that we don't see? We are suckers if we don't take one of these 2 quarterbacks. We are suckers of the NFL, and we will be the laughingstock of the league for the next 5 years if we do indeed pass on these quarterbacks. We will be the equivalent of the Oakland Raiders and Cleveland Browns of old, with Al Davis in particular of the Raiders of old after they lost the Super Bowl to the Bucs. They had that lull of many, many years of being the suckitude of the NFL. We will be flirting, if not being on that same playing level of suckitude, of going down the tubes, of playing in the NFL. And I do not plan on being a part of that whatsoever. As a fan, I got better things to do in life than to subjugate myself with insanity like this. So I am praying to God that common sense does indeed reign supreme over at the Titans facility with Amy Adams. She knows that she has to sell tickets. She knows that she has to put butts in seats. And then also at the same time, coincidentally, you can do that as well as draft a really good quarterback with the first overall pick to represent the face of your franchise. And Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. You can do that with these two guys. You can draft one of these guys and have the excuse of signing Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, God forbid, for a 1-year deal, and you can get away with that. You can get away with that. You can still have your cake and eat it too, sign your vet, and still draft your rookie quarterback. The Falcons did it. The Falcons did it with Kirk Cousins. They went ahead and drafted Michael Penix Jr. Look at the benefits they're reaping on that one. They're enjoying that one every single sliver they get. And saying, thank the Lord we drafted Michael Penix because Kirk Cousins is washed and injury prone and turnover prone. Oh, my Lord. Thank the Lord we drafted Michael Penix Jr. so we can move off of Kirk Cousins and let him go back to Cleveland and Kevin Stefanski. That's the one fit that fits Kirk Cousins. And so, with that rant out of the way, let comments... The theme of that is let common sense prevail. Let common sense prevail. And with that, I'm going to get warmed up now. We're going to close out the show here. And thanks for tuning in to this new episode of Cast to the King. I'm your host, Joshua Mickle. And comment below, what do you think about the Titans? What do you think they should do with the first overall pick? What do you think of what's going on with Halo, with Netflix, with them making the jump to PlayStation 5? What do you think of the new Daredevil and Fantastic Four spots and trailers out there? Comment below. Let me know. Subscribe, and click that bell to get notifications of new videos coming on this channel. As always, keep kicking it to the king.